Hi, welcome to Sound Living with Madi.
And Madi.
Today we're sitting down with my good friend Madison Peterson, and we've been friends for over a decade. She specializes in perinatal mental health. She's actually a licensed clinical social worker and a perinatal mental health certified therapist. Today we're going to be talking about the challenges and joys of motherhood. We're exploring practical tools, the power of community, and the importance of self-compassion during life's biggest transitions. Are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
Okay.
This is a Soak podcast.
Hey, I'm Madi, and this is Sound Living, a space for real conversations about intentional living, wellness, and personal growth. Here, we dive into practical tools, mindset shifts, and the little changes that make a big impact. Whether you're looking to create balance, build better habits, or just feel more in tune with yourself, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show. Hi, Madi.
Thanks for having me.
It's so great for you to be here. And I was just telling our crew that we've known each other for over a decade. And I'm so excited to bring you on the show and talk all things motherhood and mental health, because you and I are both moms. And like I said, we've known each other for over a decade. So let's get into it. Okay, so perinatal mental health. Why did you decide to go into that arena? Was there like a personal experience that drew you to that? Or what took you from, going to school to be a therapist to specializing in this?
Yeah, we're just jumping right in. I first heard about perinatal mental health while I was just doing general outpatient mental health. And I was seeing it without knowing that that's what I was seeing. I loved working with women in the childbearing years. And when I first learned, there's a name for this, it sparked my curiosity. And it was right around the time that we were thinking about starting a family. And I think that our journey to parenthood came with a lot of grief and a lot of pain that was not expected, and it changed me. And all of a sudden I related to this concept of perinatal mental health in a way that connected me to the work personally. So once I decided that, okay, I'm ready to relaunch my work, relaunch my practice, it was a no-brainer to focus on perinatal mental health. I could say more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to, dive in deeper to what drew you into this space. You said that you experienced some grief while you guys were trying to start a family.
Yeah, I thought, like everything in my life, I've just been an achieving type person. Yeah. And so when I make my mind up, I do it.
Yep.
And I think the journey to parenthood was the first time I couldn't force my way through something. So we experienced miscarriage. I had 2 miscarriages before I had a full-term baby. And that was the first point of understanding of like, this process isn't just beautiful and magical, and that can also produce good. Like it was painful, but it changed me. It changed my marriage in a positive way because we worked through it instead of just, you can make a lot of choices in that when you're hit with pain. But that was the first point where I could relate to this population on a personal level.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about like the partner's role in supporting when it comes to miscarriage. What does that look like? What types of things are you telling your clients that are coming in? And do you ever speak to them in their partner, or how does that work?
Yeah. It's no one's going to understand your loss exactly like you. Yeah. But the closest person is going to be your partner, because it's their loss too. And so I think that relational dynamic is really important in your journey through loss. So I always am encouraging my clients to communicate with their partners about how they're feeling, and to be open and accepting of where your partner is at too, because we grieve different. Yes. And that's okay. Allowing space to grieve how you need, but being in communication with each other about where you're at and what's hurting today or what's feeling good today. And that's all right.
That's such great advice. And I feel like there's such a stigma around miscarriage. And I feel like there's a stigma around just sharing the good news, right? Whenever you take that pregnancy test and it's positive, and then you have the world telling you, wait, you better not tell anyone. What if something happens? And this is something that you and I actually haven't talked about, but so you know that I have a 2.5-year-old Annie. And in between, Annie and where I am today, I've experienced 2 miscarriages. And, the first time Aaron and I, we were thinking, okay, well, let's, we're going to wait. We're not going to tell anyone. We're going to wait till that 12-week mark. And we waited, and then we ended up having a miscarriage. And then I was like, okay, so now I have to go and tell everyone, well, I was pregnant, but, and I really needed that village, and I needed that support system. But I had kind of allowed this stigma of, don't share your news to stop me from, involving my family and potentially having extra support. So I didn't end up telling them and getting support from them until months after it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing in life in general to open yourself up to feeling the full spectrum of joy and pain, because you can't have one without the other. And everyone's preferences are different. Everyone's comfort level is different, but I always encourage people to celebrate. Like, if you have an opportunity to celebrate. And if that changes tomorrow and it's pain, at least you celebrate it.
Right.
And just to allow closeness in your relationships, I think helps the healing process.
Yeah, 100%. And so then with our second go around with it, we did end up telling family immediately, and it unfortunately, ended in another miscarriage. But I was so glad that we already had that support system. We had people praying for us. They were there for us. There were extra people to talk to if we wanted to, or if we didn't want to. And it was really nice to be surrounded by that love and support and grace. And I was glad that the second time around that we ended up kind of involving our close family more. It was really it was something that I think that a lot of people are discouraged to do, and I would recommend against it. So
I think that the culture around keep it to yourself can perpetuate shame for a person when they experience a miscarriage. It is common. That doesn't mean it's normal or easy or not a big deal.
So you obviously you work with moms in a really raw and emotional state. What's that like?
It's the biggest honor of my life to be able to hold space for someone else in difficult times. I don't know. It's hard to articulate. It feels really sacred. I feel a lot of respect towards all of my clients, because I know what that feels like to sit vulnerable and raw and scared and uncertain with someone, and to let them in on that. So it's incredible. I love it.
Do you find that there's like one piece of advice that brings comfort or kind of meets the mom where they're at in their journey, or is it kind of case by case?
It's case by case, but I think every mom feels relief by someone else just saying it's okay. Like you're not losing it. Like it's okay to feel this way. Permission to feel like motherhood isn't awesome, or I'm not loving this right now. I think that always brings relief, because again, that shame narrative is so strong for, we get a lot of cultural messages around what motherhood should be and how we should feel about it. And if you're not feeling like it's magical and perfect and beautiful and connected, then it's so easy to start thinking, well, what's wrong with me? I'm a bad mom. Am I even a good person? And so to be able to immediately meet that with like love and acceptance and, I don't know, just permission to feel whatever you feel. It immediately helps, I think.
Yeah. I feel like motherhood is really a journey. It's, we talk a lot about the journey versus the destination. And oftentimes that narrative goes along with like business or success. And, we kind of come to this realization that the success is in the journey. And I feel that way about motherhood too. And, not just having Annie, but, whenever we were trying to conceive beforehand, that's part of my motherhood journey. And, the losses that we've experienced after her, that's a really big part of my motherhood journey. It's shaped me so much as a human. It's changed my brain. It's changed the way that I feel my emotions, that I process things, the way that I look at life. And, I'm kind of an eternally optimistic person. So I do default to that side, but I feel grateful for my entire motherhood journey and everything that I've gone through. And I think that it's so incredible, the work that you're doing. And I've seen you post about some miscarriage support groups where you get groups of moms together. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's always been a desire of my heart. And so I launched my first miscarriage support group in the fall of 2024, and it was amazing. I partnered with another therapist friend, and we kind of tag teamed. But through that group, I saw there is a real need for ongoing miscarriage support groups. So I am currently running a miscarriage support group once a month. It's just a drop-in group, and come on the months that are hard, and you're not required to be there every month. But I actually have that at my office now once a month.
That's amazing. Have you found that the moms that participate in this find a lot of comfort in hearing about other people's stories, and maybe they don't feel so alone?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like the culture around loss, it has changed a lot in the past 5 years or so, but that piece of just knowing that someone else is where you are or has been where you are is so helpful. Even physically, like, well, what is happening to my body? Why am I feeling this way? And to have another person say, I'm experiencing that too.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the heart behind the group, is that I'm connecting other people to expand their supports. And it's not really about me and what I'm doing with the group as much as it is about what the women are doing with each other and connecting with each other.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. Okay, so I want to take a step back and talk about perinatal mental health.
Yes.
For someone who is like, what the heck is that? It sounds very clinical.
It does.
What is that? Is it sort of all encompassing?
Yes. So perinatal mental health is any time between trying to conceive, through pregnancy, and through postpartum. So that there's a lot of arguments about how long is that? And I would just say, how long is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because postpartum is a journey in and of itself. I've never felt the way that I felt right after I had a baby. Yeah. Those weeks coming back from the hospital, I remember looking at Aaron and just asking him, what is going on? What is our life now? Like, it was such an adjustment. And not only do you have, a new beautiful family member living in your space, which is phenomenal, but you're changed. You're changed physically, you're changed mentally, emotionally. You have hormones kind of running through your body and your brain. And I have not been the same since I had my daughter in a lot of really beautiful ways. But that immediate postpartum experience for me, it was a roller coaster. So I'd love to hear from you on what kinds of things that you do or you see to support your, is it clients or patients? Clients. To support your clients in that postpartum era.
Okay. That's a big question. It is such a transformation. Like I always say, even if things go perfectly, this is still a huge role change in your family, in your identity. And that is worth spending some intentional time processing with someone. So sometimes that's what I do. I just help the person process their new role. And a lot of times, the relationship with your own mother comes up.
Interesting.
Because this role shift is bringing up maybe feelings that you had about your relational dynamic with your mom. I see that a lot as you're deciding, well, how do I want to mother? So we'll talk through those things. Oh man, there's a lot. I don't know. That's a really broad
so
question.
much. And it's funny that you bring that up because as we've, my husband and I, Aaron, as we've gone through this parenting journey together, I feel like that's all we're pulling from. It's like, well, what did our parents do?
Yeah.
And how do we feel about it? And how do we feel about it now looking back and as an adult? And how did we feel about it whenever we were a kid experiencing it? And it's kind of like our only frame of reference for parenting is, how our parents parented us. And, I feel like it's the job of every generation to try to just do a little bit better than what their parents did. And, Aaron and I, we had great parents, but, you look at it with this microscope and, the world changes and cultures change. And it's really hard to kind of decide, okay, what's going to be best for my child and, what's going to not mess them up. We're all just trying not to like mess up our kids, right? We want them to live beautiful, happy lives. And I think all we can do is really try our best. And I think that having some kind of like coping mechanism with that, like just telling ourselves it's okay. Because at least for me, and I know a lot of moms are like this, is I kind of obsess over what's the right move? What do we do? Is it this? Is it that? Is it, do we sleep train? Do we bed share? Do we, and you read all of these, for me, it's Instagram stories and TikToks. And, you have a lot of experts who, are really passionate about their viewpoint on things. And, everyone has a study to back something up and it can feel really exhausting as a parent.
Yeah. I think that's a unique challenge for parents in our modern era.
Yeah.
As there is a lot of access to resources and that's not a bad thing, but it can become overwhelming really fast. And so a lot of the work I do with people is redirecting your attention back to your own instinct.
Yes.
Resources are not bad. You should ask experts, but first check in with yourself. What am I sensing here? What is my kid telling me? Like being attuned to your family and to yourself is the starting point. And rebuilding trust with your own voice and your own ability to make decisions. I see a lot of moms who there's so much information. There's all this new responsibility now with a baby that you're like, I don't know. Will someone please tell me what to do? And to hold that gently and say, what do you want to do? It's a huge time for empowerment. I see it's just ripe for change. Like it's the perfect environment for change. And because when are you really spending time assessing like how was I raised outside of therapy? But a natural point in your story where you're like assessing these things and being thoughtful about, well, how do I want to respond to that, and reclaiming parts of your patterns in your life that are going to affect not only your child but you and your partner. So
I love that. I really love what you said there about leaning into your own intuition. I believe that God gave us that, spiritual connection and that motherly intuition for a reason. And we do have the entire base of knowledge at our fingertips in our phone. And it feels, like I mentioned earlier, it can feel really exhausting just to be like, well, if I know that I have access to all of the information, then why wouldn't I spend hours and hours and hours obsessing over all of it, trying to figure out which truly is the best, because we want the best for our kids and our family. And I think that's really powerful, what you said, to just lean into your instincts and kind of check in with yourself and figure out, okay, what's right for my family? Because every person is different. Every family is different. Needs are different. We all have our basic human needs, but when it comes to, if you look at my daughter, Annie, and you look at my niece, Macy, who are 8 days apart, they couldn't be more different. They have different needs. They have different skill sets. They have different emotions, emotional capacities. They learn at different levels. And we cannot parent them the same way. There at the beginning, my sister and I were always on the phone, like, okay, we're at the 7-week mark. So this is what our schedule should look like. And this is what this is what all the experts say that the baby's needs are. And as they've gotten older, we can hardly take advice from one another now because our kids are so different, even though they're, 7 or 8 days apart. And it's been really interesting, but I do think that motherhood in and of itself has just been, it's been an opportunity to really lean in and trust your gut, trust your instincts, you know, have conversations with your partner. Yeah. Well, let's shift. So I know that you've posted a lot about this. This is something that I think every mom has experienced, is mom guilt. I would love your take on this. What's like the number one thing that you hear from moms coming into your office that they're feeling guilty about, and what's your response to them?
I see a lot of moms who are really concerned that they're not doing enough intentionally with their child, enhancing their learning. It's like the pressure to have every single activity mapped out, or like behind the activity is a deeper enrichment. And again, not a bad concept. I think it's great to be mindful about like what activities am I offering my child? But when you know, I think I saw an example once that was like, if you're going on a walk, which is a healthy thing to do if you're needing a break, if you're going on a walk and you feel pressure to be like, oh, little Johnny, let's look at the trees. What are the trees doing? Are they changing? Are they growing? Like you've just exited the relaxing part of the walk and you've entered this space of like, I need to have everything perfect again.
Yeah. It's a great lesson on photosynthesis and how roots work, and how can I enrich this even more?
This pressure for moms to like make sure everything has meaning for their kids is draining us.
Yes. I saw you post something about, I can't remember what it was. I think you were linking to another podcast. And I think it had to do with the amount of time that moms spend working. Can you share that with us? Okay.
So it's been a few months, so I'm not going to get it right. It was an episode of The Daily, like the New York Times podcast.
Yeah.
And I think the title was The Parents Are Not All Right. It was around the time that like it was being released that like it's a harm to your mental health to have kids. Which is probably not new, but but the factors that are contributing are new. And so, they said that working moms today spend more time with their kids than stay-at-home moms did.
That's what it was.
With their kids in the 1970s.
That blew my mind, and it made me feel so good.
Yeah, like you're doing enough.
Yes.
You're doing enough.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like they were doing everything perfect in the 1970s. No, but there was something about the culture where women felt more permission to have activities outside of their kids or their work.
Yeah.
And I think that is a healthy reminder for modern moms that, your kids are a huge part of your world, and it's beautiful, and it should be that way. You're still really important.
Yeah.
And you deserve to have time for you and interests for you outside of your home and your family.
Yeah, I think that obviously social media has contributed a lot to this particular issue. And I do think it's an issue. I think that, it's what you're specializing in. It's maternal mental health. It's something it's near and dear. It's very important. We all are kind of looking at this Pinterest perfect motherhood journey and experience, not only in, the activities, the trips, Disneyland, everything, but we're also feeling pressure to mirror the emotions of the people that are posting it. And we all know better. We know better than to trust that highlight reel. But I do it. I fall into it. And it's really funny. I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was this trend going around where families were going to the beach and they were digging this like heart-shaped thing in the sand and putting the camera in the bottom. And then everyone was gathering around and they would put the camera on self-timer and it would take this really beautiful picture of this sand heart at the beach and all the, the family's looking at.
Oh, so cute.
And my sister was like, oh man, I really want to do that. Like everyone, this is such a great picture. And they went to the beach and it was like a disaster nightmare. Like kids were yelling, the phone got buried in the sand. And I'm like, I bet you that 90% of people who are trying this trend are experiencing this mass chaos.
Yeah.
And as moms, we beat ourselves up for the silliest things. And I would love to hear your take just on this like Pinterest perfect motherhood.
Yeah. Perfection I see it all the time with almost all of my clients, this pressure to be perfect in some sense. And I just gently bring people back to, what does your child need? Like, do they need a perfect mom? And everyone knows, like, no, they don't need a perfect mom. They need a present mom. And that's enough. Like, your presence is enough. You're a human being. You're going to make mistakes, and you have to believe that there's grace for that. Someone much smarter than me, I'm sure, once told me, like, you could be the perfect parent and your kid is still going to end up in therapy because we love imperfectly. Your parents loved you imperfectly. You receive love imperfectly. You know, we all have a lens that we're filtering life through.
Yeah.
So I could love you perfectly, and you're going to receive that in a way that I can't control. And you might still need to process that, and that's okay. That doesn't mean your mom's a failure or your dad's a failure. It just means you're humans and you're imperfect. And communication and healing can take place when you can kind of drop that perfection goal and just allow yourself to be human.
That is amazing. I've actually never heard anyone talk about that lens of receiving love. And that's something that, you know, like, just like you said, you can be the perfect mom, you can love perfectly, and you cannot control the lens in which, you know, your child, your partner, your friends, anyone receives that.
That's right.
That's great life advice. That's amazing. Wow. So, you know, oftentimes as moms, we end up juggling the needs of everyone else in our family, our children, our, you know, spouse in some cases. What types of tools or what types of, I guess, mental exercises maybe could a mom practice to kind of help ease that load?
You know, we like to preach self-care, and I think a lot of people's image of self-care is like doing a face mask at the end of the night. And like, I love that. I'm not going to tell you not to do a face mask. And that can be great self-care. But I like to frame self-care for moms as do something once a day that reminds you of who you are at the core. And that doesn't mean you need hours and hours to, you know, go do these things. It's building into your routine moments that are intentional and for you. And so if that means, you know, waking up 30 minutes early and doing your journaling and your mindfulness, like, do it. If that means having a certain song you play while you're cooking breakfast that connects you to like who you are and who God is, like, these moments matter for your overall health. And it's not difficult, because I think people can get really overwhelmed, like, oh, that's one more thing I have to do. Like, I have to take care of everyone and then I have to take care of myself. And reframing that into like, you're already caring for, like, you're already alive, you're living. Let's look at your routines and just build in a few things here and there that point you back to who you are and who you're created to be outside of mom.
That is such great advice. I've never heard anyone talk about that before. Because you're right. We often think like, you know, bubble bath, a glass of wine, binging a show. But when I think back to moments where I've taken time to explore things that make me feel like myself, you know, whether that's, you know, we just got a piano around Christmas because I love music. I've loved music my whole life, you know, before we had a family and before we were, you know, obviously we have a startup that requires a lot of time as well. That's kind of like having another baby, another child. But the times that I've taken to really explore like my music, my creativity, you know, watercolor paintings, just taking 30 minutes to an hour has made me feel so much like myself. Or even just getting in the car with my husband and, you know, maybe it's while Annie's at school, or maybe we have a babysitter, and just listening to the music that we love and, you know, taking not a road trip, but just like a drive around town. And it's kind of reminiscent of the things that we really feel like are ourselves. And that is self-care. I don't think that a lot of people define it as that. And I think that's really powerful advice to really lean into what your passions are. And you don't have to be great at it. I think it's like, I kind of picture myself as a little sim where they spend time like on the piano or on the painting canvas or, you know, whatever. And it really fuels me. It makes me feel like myself. It makes me feel happy.
Yeah, that's true self-care. Does it speak to who you are? So that's different for everyone. And my clients might come and they might have already a really strong base for self-care and not see it as self-care. Or they don't. I see a lot of people who are like, I don't know who I am anymore, especially driven women who are like, I did career, I did it, all of a sudden, like, I'm home with this baby and I have all this time and I don't know, like, who am I? And I'm like, I can't wait to find out. But so sometimes I will have people connect to creative parts of themselves that have been long disconnected. I love that you mentioned the piano.
Yeah.
And like, just that's something you've always enjoyed, but picking that back up, even if you're not going to go play a recital, like just going and like plucking a few
having the time
things
to like tinker with it, and especially time, because anytime, obviously, when I try to do that and Annie's around, she's like,
she's all about it.
Oh yeah, she is like turns into like a concert pianist.
She's Beethoven.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it, it's her thing. And I love that. And it's fun. And, I try to teach her, Mary Had a Little Lamb and stuff. No, she doesn't want to do that. She just wants to like slam the keys as hard as she can. And
she's a rocker.
Exactly. But yeah, just having that space, and it doesn't take a lot of time.
No,
and
it's so healing to reconnect with parts of yourself that are playful and creative, and they exist in every person because I think our creator is creative.
Yes.
And so he puts those gifts in us and you can access them easily. It's just make a mark.
Yes.
And you have kids and they're so raw with their creativity, and it gives you permission to be creative too. And I think I encourage all of my clients to lean in to that.
That is so true. And I'm going to give a really funny example. So Annie, she went through a really big like Daisy Duck phase. And anytime that we had like her little magnetic drawing thing that, you can erase, she'd be like, draw Daisy Duck. And I'm like, oh, that's hard. But because it's me and my, 2.5-year-old, there's not a lot of pressure. Like it's probably not something that I would try to sit down and draw had my 2-year-old not asked me to do this. But here I go, taking out my reference picture, and I'm on this little pixelated drawing pad. And it wasn't half bad. And I was like, that was kind of fun. And like, it wasn't, I'm not an artist. Please don't come for me, anyone.
You might be.
Maybe I will someday, but it was fun. And Aaron looked at it and he goes, that's pretty good. And I was like, yeah, I think that was actually pretty good. But the more important thing was that it was really fun for me. And it's not something that I probably would have given myself permission to explore had my 2-year-old not asked me to do it. Yeah. So, I love that.
I think that is a great antidote for perfectionism too. Oftentimes we're like, well, I need to be the perfect mom so my kid sees, this example. But sometimes what they need is just you to sit down at the table and make something with them. And they might see that and they're learning, I can take time for myself and I can make things. And if it's not perfect, I still made it and it's part of me and now it lives. I don't know. It's just this beautiful opportunity to teach, but also to be taught by our kids. Creativity and art has been a huge part of my own motherhood journey. And it's something that I think I've always been creative, and I would have not called myself an artist 10 years ago when we met. I was always like, well, that's for my sister. My sister is a studio artist. But as I've reconnected with myself through my own motherhood journey, I am an artist, and it's been such a gift to make things and have my children seeing me make things. They don't know me any different.
Right.
And my daughter, she'll say like, oh, mommy, she's an artist just like you. Aww. And I'm like, okay, I'm working on believing that still. But it's so cool to see these little people. Like,
kids help a lot with imposter syndrome because they look at you like you can do anything in the world. And they believe that they can do anything in the world, and they can. And that's what we tell them. So that's like their core belief. And, I always say, and everyone always says, that children are mirrors, right? They mirror things back to you. And oftentimes we look at that through like a negative lens, like, she's mirroring my reaction when I get frustrated, and I don't love that about myself. And now that I'm seeing her do it, like I extra don't love it, which we're experiencing right now. Yes. But aside from that, we see them mirror those positive beliefs that we're instilling in them, and that comes back and it helps us and it heals us. And it's part of that beautiful journey of motherhood.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I have a daughter who is 5 and I have a son who's 3. So some of those, 3-year-old big feelings that you don't love mirrored back are being mirrored back to me. But I have been historically a more internalized feeler. I think a lot of women are. And it's really been a gift to have a son who experiences everything really physically. Everybody experiences emotions physically, whether you're paying attention to it or not.
Right.
And to see him display his emotions so physically, it's a reminder, like, where am I feeling that in my body? And how can I, like, release that from my body in a way that's, you know, not hurting someone or myself?
Right.
You know, because 3-year-old boys, they'll just go and hit you.
Yeah, it's wild, the difference between little boys and little girls. So we obviously we just have a little girl, but my dad, he has a little boy who is like 10 months older than Annie, and Annie and Hudson, they're like best friends. They have a blast together. But whenever we watch them next to each other, like the way that they play, the way that they emote, like the way that they express, it's so wildly different. And you see, like, yes, he is like full boy. He is running and screaming, and he has the swords, and, you know, he's protective too. And he is like just this fighter. And Annie, she goes toe to toe with Hudson. I will say that, like, she'll pick up on some of the things that he does. He's a little bit older, but we are always looking at those differences. And, you know, we have a lot of girls in our family. So Hudson is like the first little boy in a while. And, you know, now my brother has a 20-month-old little boy. They live on the East Coast, so we don't get to see him as much, but we're all just kind of like watching and learning. And we're used to these, like, you know, the glittery tutus and the let's talk about our feelings.
We have this in common because I have one sister and like a lot of girl cousins. I have one boy cousin. So I was raised like around girls. It was girl power all the way. And so when I found out I was having a girl with my daughter, I was like, oh, I got this.
Yes.
You know, and I just thought we're going to have girls. So when I found out I was expecting a boy, it literally shook me. I was like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know how to relate to men. And someone was like, well, good thing he has a dad. But it's when I was pregnant with Luca, I was like praying, like, who is this person? Like, I was trying to connect with this boy, and I kept coming back to the word expansive. And it has been expansive for me to have a son. And I think expansive is a great word for what motherhood does to you in general, because you're seeing life differently. You're being poked and prodded differently by your kids, physically, emotionally.
Right.
And if you choose to lean into that, it's truly expansive. And you don't become perfect, but you just become somehow broader.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
Well, because not only were you going from girl to boy, but you were going from 1 to 2 kids. I remember we were at the park together, and I was like, Maddie, I mean, is it really that hard going from 1 to 2 kids? And you go, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
You said, I'm going to shoot straight with you. Yes, it was really hard.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. It is hard. It is.
What kind of things do you tell moms who are pregnant and they have a toddler and they're preparing, you know, the times, you know, we're obviously trying to have a second. And I'm always thinking about, you know, how is this going to impact Annie? Because like we are like the 3 amigos. She has our full attention, you know, mom and dad both. And I'm always thinking, how is this, you know, other baby coming into the family, how is this going to impact our dynamic? And I'm already putting pressure on myself.
I think I would start with, well, you can't control all those things. It is going to change your family.
Yeah.
I keep hitting it. I'm sorry. It is going to change your family because you're adding a member. Yes. And that changes everyone's role in the family. And that will be for the better. And that will be for the stretching. I'm not going to say for the worse because it won't. It will change you, but in the same way that having Annie has changed you. Yes. I think you can trust this journey you've been on to continue.
Yeah, I love that. You always have the best way of rephrasing things that I say. There's one time I told you, you said, how are you doing? And I said, I hate saying it, but I'm just so busy. Like, I'm so tired of saying that I'm busy. Like, I hate hearing myself say that. And you said, you have a very full life. You are living a full, beautiful life. And I said, yes, I am.
Yes. I am skilled in the art of the reframe. Thank you, grad school.
Yes. So what is there like one piece of advice that you give every single mom who walks into your office?
I wish I had a magic wand that was just like,
yes,
I would be charging a lot more per hour. No, I think just that permission to trust yourself and to trust God in you. If you're a believing person, like, you can trust that. And if you trust that that guiding voice is good and that that's coming from something within you, you can also trust that you are good. Yes. And you can parent from a place of trust instead of a place of fear.
I love that. So for the mom who is right now just feeling completely overwhelmed, burnt out, what's one thing that they can do today to start feeling a little better?
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I think I would start with, are you breathing? Mm-hmm. You're here. I think I would say you are doing something for yourself. That would be the first step. And then a lot of times the short-term work is just looking at your existing supports and just bolstering them up a little bit. I use a wellness wheel to kind of assess that with my clients a lot. And I don't ask them to change all of their habits overnight. But we look at that realistically together. And then we just say, how can we take a step in this direction to have a little bit of a fuller self-care routine or, just a step towards wellness in these areas that might be a deficit.
People don't realize how impactful like micro changes can be, especially over the course of time. You know, if you just like what we talked about earlier, taking, 15, 30 minutes to just do something that makes you feel like you again can be so impactful and so powerful, and it can have a compounding effect. And I think that's really special. What is one myth about motherhood that you are overhearing?
I love this question. There's so many. I think, I have to pick just one?
No, you can share.
Okay.
You can share a few.
Okay. These are in no rank order.
Okay.
Like, these are just myths I'm going to put out there. That motherhood is so natural.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I always tell this story, and because I think it makes people feel better. I always saw videos and pictures of people giving birth and they're crying and they have this like immediate connection with their baby. And they put Annie on my chest and I was like, who is she? Who is this? I was like, hi, stranger. Like, I know you've been living inside me for the past 9 months, but I have no idea who you are or who I am as a mother. And there were not tears of joy. Like, I was like almost in shock, I think.
Yeah, that's a very normal reaction to birth.
It did not feel natural at all. It felt very like I'm meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
you are. And you don't know her. And I think to assume that you do is a misstep. And so relationship takes time. I just met some of the people in this room and I would not assume to know who they are.
Right.
And I know you. I've known you for a long time and I love you. I care for you. I still don't know every part of you.
That's right.
It's going to take a lifetime of friendship, to get to know each other. And your kids are the same. It's okay if you don't feel that instant bond because you have a long time to build that relationship. And I think a lot of moms need to hear that.
Yeah. Because, again, it goes back to like that Pinterest perfect take on motherhood where it's like, you naturally step into this role. And I do think that we have like certain intuition. I do think that, God is speaking to us. And I think that we have a certain connection with our children, but it didn't feel natural to me.
No, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And also birth, even if birth goes perfectly, it's kind of traumatic. It's okay that you're kind of in shock because like something really huge just happened to you. And I'm still wrapping my brain around that. And I don't think I'll ever fully.
And you immediately go into caring for someone else. It's like you just did something pretty crazy. And then it's like, okay, who's on diapers? Like let's
both of us.
Let's breastfeed. Like
both of us are putting our diapers on and we're taking care of.
Let's get this figured out. Yeah. And it's a lot. I mean,
I remember like one of the first nights home with my daughter. like, it was one of those like 3 a.m. feedings that take like an hour because you don't know what you're doing and the baby doesn't know what they're doing and like everything hurts. And I remember crying and telling my husband, this just feels so hard and it's unfair because I just did the hardest thing I've ever done. And now I'm having to do this. And so it's just hard, and it's always been hard, and there's nothing wrong with you for feeling like this is hard and I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy in this moment.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, and don't get me wrong. And you know this too. There are so many beautiful moments, but there are a lot of hard moments and moments that you don't know how to prepare for. I mean, Aaron and I, like, we have always loved kids, but like, I didn't grow up babysitting. Like, I had never changed a diaper until I changed Annie's diaper. And so I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And then you throw in things like colic and, different types of diapers. Like, you find yourself Googling poo. And you're like, is this what it's supposed to look like? I don't know. I never thought that I would be doing this. And there are these 3 a.m. moments. And I think that's where it's really important to have a support system, a supportive partner. I will always brag on my husband because he is phenomenal. And, I would, for the first 6 weeks, Annie didn't latch, and I really wanted to make breastfeeding work. And so, we kept trying. We were taking her to the chiropractor, this and that, but I would get up and pump because we were exclusively pumping, and he would get up with me and he would be washing bottles. He would be, changing Annie's diaper. And it was a true team effort. And I really love that about our generation, is I feel like we're seeing more supportive dads. And I don't know, I have so much respect for single mothers. Having that village is so important. And I don't know how I would have done it alone. I mean, I know that you do it. We have a lot of close friends that are single mothers, and I've asked them that question, and they say, you just do it. You grow and you expand as a person. And that happened to me too. Becoming a mom is I started doing things I never thought I would be able to do. And you find this like extra sense of power really within you, and empowerment. And that was a really positive side of motherhood for me, is I was constantly in awe of like my ability to expand and to grow. And of course, leaning on my husband too was a big part of that. But
yeah, so true.
Yeah. So what's another myth about
another
motherhood?
myth?
Yes.
I'm like, now all I can think about is that one. Let's see.
Well, it's a good one. I think that it's a really important one about, everyone expecting it to be this natural, like, kind of Disney princess, Snow White, birds are chirping experience. And no matter how experienced you are, like we said, you just met that human that day. Yeah. And of course there's some connection there, but it can be difficult. It's a difficult transition. So yeah.
I think maybe another myth is, and I don't know that this is exactly the way people say it, but it's like, they imply, well, once you have that baby, you just fade into the background. You just don't. I literally had someone tell me when I was pregnant, oh, honey, you're about to be irrelevant. And so, not everybody is saying that, but there is this message given to women that like, once you make that jump, you don't really matter as much.
Right.
And I'm very passionate about breaking that expectation, because you do. You mattered before and you matter now. And that's a big myth. You're not irrelevant.
Right. Yeah. So if you could wave a magic wand and change how society treats women, mothers specifically, what would it be? What would you do?
And just more support all around. Yeah. I think that we didn't go into this before, but part of my own experience postpartum with my son was I experienced perinatal depression. And as a mental health professional, I had a hard time identifying what was happening with me. Yeah. And there were every professional around me, pediatrician, OB, like all of these people who I love, like, and I know that they cared for me. I told them, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And it wasn't a lack of care. It was just a lack of resource and like knowledge about perinatal mental health. And I think the assumption that, oh, well, she's a therapist, like she's going to figure it out maybe. If I could wave a magic wand, everyone would be more educated about this. Everyone would be more compassionate towards the difficulties of this transition. And there would be attention on connecting women to the resources they need, which is what I'm trying to do with my practice. Like, I think you can experience something like that and it can make you bitter or angry. And that's not negative. I mean, that often points to a passion. And so I experienced that and I said, well, what can I do? I'm just me, but I matter. Like I can do something. And so that's a lot of the heartbeat of my practice. It's just trying to wave that magic wand.
That's right. Yeah. Well, okay. So what advice would you have for our listeners who, maybe they're not a mom, but they have someone in their life who is a mom, maybe it's their partner, a relative, someone at work. What can they do? Like what's one small thing that they could do to show support for that mother in their life?
Check in, especially to the mom who seems like she has it together or is, she's nailing the perfection thing. Ask her how she's doing. Ask her again.
Yes.
Show up at her door and bring something with you. You don't always have to ask. Moms are pretty bad at being able to say, I need help with this. So show up with some sort of nutritious snack. Offer to come hold the baby so she can shower. Go and fold her laundry. Like just do anything and don't ask for permission. Just show up.
Because it's really hard, especially when you're in this, like, I don't know if we call it the fight or flight. You're kind of in this stage where you are just trying to survive. But if someone, were to come in and say, let me know if you need anything, I'm not going to start saying what I need because you're going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah, I need a lot.
Yeah. I need a lot, but I don't feel comfortable asking for it.
Yeah. So to just be aware of that and to show up for the moms in your life and to be with them, I think is the best thing you can do. Be available.
Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Madison.Petersen LLC. And that's it. I'm just on Instagram.
I love that. I follow you. I am always watching your content. I think that it's really special. And obviously a lot of it has stuck with me because it's kind of what I keep referencing. But what if they're local in Tulsa? Can they book appointments with you?
Yes. So if you go to my Instagram, there's a link in my bio where you can schedule directly. I offer a free consultation always because I think therapy is a lot like dating. Like we have to figure out, is this a good match? And so I offer that for free to either get you with me in the room, or I also provide telehealth.
Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. Well, everyone check her out on Instagram. And thank you so much, Maddie, for being here. This is great.
Thank you, Maddie.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. If you loved this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs it. You can find us on Instagram at Soak Podcast for more inspiration and wellness insights. Thanks for being here. And until next time, keep tuning into what truly matters.